Tesla chairman secret China plan is our story for today, with 10,000 sales for the month of March. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Wanted to say also thank you to our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. So we have kind of three components of the show today. The first is that it was announced that there were 10,160 cars sold in China in March, up from, so that's kind of our first segment. Second segment is sort of the title of our show, which is kind of the secret plan for China that the new chairman of Tesla kind of came up with. Our running footage today is some footage from Tesla inside the China factory. It's still a work in progress to slow it down from the hyper speeds that they've provided us, but we look forward to getting it rounded out a little bit nicer. So that's the general gist of our show, along with our health tips, etc. So the first thing we wanted to review is that it was announced that Tesla had 10,160 sales in China in March, taking 30% share. I got a text on this about 6 in the morning here from a financial publication, and our analysis is congratulations, and I think that's terrific. What we further concluded, well, the issue is that that number in and of itself is a good number, so there's nothing wrong with it. There's a whole bunch of questions that sort of lurk there with it, though, that one can review. Let's start with the fact that what's kind of happened in the United States is that there are a lot of people who put their $2,500 down to get a Model Y. And as the economy went bad, a lot of the people that were at the back of the line sort of were moved to the front of the line, because the front of the line people either lost their jobs, weren't confident enough in their numbers to go ahead and purchase the vehicle. So one question that comes up for China is consistently, what's the order backlog for the Chinese customers? We know that Tesla implies that they have 100,000 orders for the China-built Model 3. It's implied based on the number of vehicles they plan to build, etc. But we really haven't seen any follow-through from Tesla to tell us what that number is, which is one of the reasons the stock is so volatile, is that when you do find out those numbers and it's baked into sales that might have occurred, it creates an explosion. So another number that comes out of this that we thought was interesting is the ramp numbers were 1,500 January, 2,600 February, 10,160 in March. Now, this is very interesting because if you add up all three of those numbers, call it 15,000, 16,000 vehicles, we predicted that there are actually 20,000 vehicles that were sold in China, so we're off by 4K. So if we take the 80,000 or 88,400, deduct 16, so 60,000 vehicles were sold that were produced in Fremont. And so what this implies is Fremont probably produced 80 to 100,000 cars, so they have a nice overhang of inventory that they can use to deal with the shutdown period and still have vehicles to sell. So, I think that there's all kinds of ways to play around with this data, but it just suggests that, Tesla's sales, given at the high-end price points, are slowing down, but at the low-end price points, they're fine. So another number that you could play around with is, in theory, they're producing 3,000 vehicles a month as of March for the Shanghai factory. So in theory, 4 times 3, is 12,000 vehicles. So, the ramping period was still going on. And I think it's a given that 1,000 to 2,000 Model S's and X's were sold in that mix that might have been shipped in from the United States. So, bottom line is that we'll probably see better numbers for April, because we're now solidly in the 3,000 vehicles a week zone. And then we sort of have implications that come from that. We're hoping what this means is that China's economy is stabilized and returning to normal, So their buying patterns will reflect that, is the hope that we're working with, and we'll see how this plays out. The next thing, good numbers, a lot of questions. What this suggests then is that, at least given that Tesla has a new production, they're working through this inventory and they've got a lot of it to work through. So what this is suggesting is that in general, you're probably seeing perhaps 30,000, maybe even 40,000 vehicles sold between China at, call it 12,000 vehicles, and then the overhang of inventory based on the economy, adding perhaps 30 to 40,000 vehicles there. So what we're seeing then, therefore, is numbers sort of in this range. If we get back to production full bore in the March 4th to 15th zone, this actually gives Tesla a chance to save its quarter, meaning that it could at least, I think it's possible that if in this month they do 30, 35,000 vehicles, they only need another 50K over the following 2 months to actually get to what they did in Q1. And with diminished expectations on stock price, et cetera, I think they could actually be profitable and make an S&P still. So stay tuned. I think this is very interesting. The next thing that we wanted to cover is we actually are, I want to say, suspicious and pleasantly so of what's going on with Robin Dedholm, who's the new chairman of Tesla. So the reason why we're calling it the secret China plan is that there's some really interesting math that's popped up. So what that math is that the run rate is 10,000 vehicles a month prior to shutdown for Fremont. And if you multiply 10,000 vehicles times, let's say 50 weeks for the year, that's 500,000 cars. So what Elon indicated was that he would guarantee that Tesla would produce 500,000 vehicles in 2020. And where the interesting numbers come up that we see driven by the new chairman is the fact that assuming Fremont had just run a full bore for the year, they could have achieved 500,000 vehicles out of that facility. Done. So the next question that comes up then is, if China right now is producing 3,000 vehicles, and then Ms. Dedholm indicated that Tesla was ramping from a sort of a start point of approximately 3,000 vehicles and rising to 10,000 vehicles, what's going on with these numbers is the question, and this is where the secret is. So let's further get into these numbers and look at something where what our estimate is, they started building out sort of the new factory in October. They actually had early construction in September of last year. So basically it took from January to October, or 10 months, to build the initial China Shanghai Gigafactory, which is producing 3,000 vehicles a month. So in essence, you could call it they've had from October to, we're thinking, either May or June, to build out sort of phase 2 in preparation for ramping that facility to 10,000 vehicles a month, or sorry, 10,000 vehicles a week, hence 40,000 a month. So it's our estimate that by June, July at the latest of this year, Tesla is capable of 10,000 vehicles a month coming out of the China plant. And if that's the case, if they produce nothing else during the year, so in theory they're doing 12,000 vehicles a month. So the numbers are fuzzy because there was a ramp period. But in essence, what we're discussing here is, by itself, China can do 250,000 vehicles in a 6-month period from June to the end of the year. So what we were always suspicious of is there's something called the upod process of business, which is under promise and over deliver. So with Ms. Dedholm aboard, Elon, could have predicted wild numbers, but he picked 500,000 vehicles. And we think this is really interesting because it's our estimate that if Fremont is running full bore and China gets to its 10,000 a week, particularly in the June period, Tesla would have been able to produce, call it 850,000 vehicles. Would they have sold them all? Probably not, especially in this economy. But what we're kind of angling for is the fact that you could shut down Fremont for a couple of months, and with the ability of Shanghai to pick up the slack, it's possible that Tesla exceeds its target number pretty easily based on having two production facilities running full bore. So I think this is fascinating because what the secret is we're arguing is that China is a secret. We don't know which vehicles they're going to be producing there. We don't know how many for sure. But if they follow the plan, that number is excellent and portends good things for the company. What I wanted to further review is the fact that this is sort of a new territory for Tesla. Usually Elon has tended to overpromise and underdeliver, and that made people mad and the stock price was going down, down, down. Now we kind of have the opposite going on, where Tesla has a process going under the new chairman where she has Elon underpromising and then over-delivering against the promise that was presented. And we think actually this is a really good turn of events for the company in terms of its future success. So we want to say congratulations to her, congratulations to Elon, et cetera, for staying within the parameters of how this works. And I think the implications will be great in terms of investors and how Tesla is received by the buying public and the investing public. So basically what we're arguing is that with China production coming on and headed for the 10,000 claimed by the new chairman, which she claims that she had gotten from Elon, we think it's definitely possible for them to enter that run rate in June and maintain it through the year to deliver numbers that allow Tesla to get way above their 500,000 vehicle produced number with ease. Now, are there any concerns with this? Answer is absolutely. And what the big concern is Elon has a plan for the Model Y to enter China not until next year. So what we kind of gathered from that was that the demand for Model 3 was so great at the lowest price point that they didn't see the need to produce the Model Y. So based on how they're moving people around, based on folks passing on their vehicles for the Model Y and then someone else taking the slot, what we're anticipating right now is a situation where the reality is that they'll exceed the number easily, and the problem becomes not can they exceed the production number, but are they going to deliver the right mix of vehicles, particularly low-cost vehicles that lend itself to good, strong sales in the current marketplace. So the answer to that is we kind of don't know, but I think they're smart enough to figure out that, if you have a flexible manufacturing line and you can flex between Y and S as needed, or Ys and at the low end and 3s as needed, simply delaying the Y until next year, as Elon described, I don't think that would be a wise move because you now have idle production capacity and people capacity, and really not his style, and they recognize the need to get sales where they can. So what this then says is that it's possible to make sure that those lines are maximally producing, that Tesla will actually go ahead and start producing that Y earlier than expected in China to make sure they fill up the production line as well as fill up the garages of more Chinese in the process. So this is going to be very interesting. And, let's add to the unknown pile. Tesla went to 30% market share of a diminished car sales market in China for March. And one of the questions that have been hanging over everything is, the Chinese can purchase EVs for as little as $15,000 to $20,000, although be it with very short range. What would they do now? What would they do now? Let's say with a 40,000-ish starting Tesla, versus would they stick with homegrown products? Would they embrace the new kid on the block at a higher price? And we think that based on resale values and a number of other components of what Tesla's about in China, it's pretty obvious that the buying public is inching or pushing up their Tesla purchases. So it kind of smells like 50% of the market can afford Teslas. And as you compete head-to-head against domestic produced vehicles, it looks like, it's a win for Tesla in that dialogue. So yes, there are definitely some unknowns there. The question mark is, how does it play out? Does it play out in Tesla's favor? We think the process that Tesla has sort of jumped into under the new chairman actually has a lot of good news elements that are emerging. And we just want to say congratulations to her and the Tesla team for what they're up to currently. So we look forward to reporting on this further. The big number that's going to really be interesting to watch is we kind of know what the sales number is. We don't know what the production number is. By the way, that's another one. Tesla may have produced X number of vehicles, but did they sell everything they could have in China? It kind of suggests they have, and that's why they're running full bore currently and getting the next set of production facilities available. So all of these sort of back-end unknowns that might affect Tesla that could allow them to deliver better than expected numbers are the kind of things that have investors going, how are you guys going to do there? And if you're going to do really well, we'll pump the stock up. If not, we'll pull the stock down. And all this uncertainty is why you see so much volatility in the stock price of Tesla, but you can't argue that it's negative. It's just we just don't know right now, and look forward to finding out what the real details are. And then we can bake that into the estimates of current and future production sales. I would have to say that we've had because Tesla's a public company, they actually have to record what I say and bake it in. And I'm really actually hoping that Elon elects to sort of continue expansion in the Shanghai facility to facilitate possibly semi or even the Cybertruck production there, which would allow them to, perhaps leverage that base to ship globally at the lowest price point possible based on the China basic cost being half of what it is elsewhere in the world. So again, we look forward to reporting on what's going on here. Congratulations to the folks at Tesla and the new chairman on sort of put a management process in place that's allowing the company, I think, to really prosper better than it might have prior to her arrival. At any rate, we want to thank you for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. In German, tschüss, au revoir. French, Heathrow, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, hey do, Swedish, ni hao ma, hello in Chinese, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, and in Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good. Again, we look forward to a stronger than expected Q2 based on some of the variables we just described. Have a great day. Bye for now. And thanks for joining us. Don't forget 25 leg lifts on a daily basis to strengthen the quad muscles. Don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4 to let the food digest. And we also want to encourage you 30 or better SPF if you're going to be out in the sun, and fried foods only once a week. Thanks again. Stay healthy during this period. Have a great day, and bye for now.